to see you.
Good
I
to
am
see you,
loving.
Tiffany.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm loving your office. I'm
Thank
loving
you.
the gold and the pop of color.
Thank
Yeah.
you. How you been? Good?
I've been okay. I've been okay. It's a lot going on in the season, but
Yeah.
I'm not about burnout at all or flustered or getting overwhelmed. I just stay in the rhythm of rest so that I can accomplish the things that God asked me to do in the season. And it's so interesting that you asked that because I met with Augusta last week and we were talking about
Okay.
burnout. I started thinking what was our conversation with me meeing you. And I thought through and I said,
Hmm.
it's my husband that knows your husband.
That's
That
right.
so I connected
That
with
is
you.
right. And
Yeah,
then I
yeah.
met you after. Yes, that's right.
Oh yeah, and then we just took over, right? Forget the
Yes.
guys, we just took over. Yeah.
The
Um,
rest was history.
the rest is history. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm glad that we have a lot in common that we work together on in ministry and with
Yes.
children and with
Yes.
supporting the people that God has placed in our lives. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And this is our second episode. So
Oh,
last
which
week
is
was my very
good.
first.
Congratulations on that, right?
Thank you very much. And I'm all about collaboration too. So as we talk
Yeah.
through burnouts, we can see what next comes of this. For instance, it just I told you morphed right into now she's in a
Mhm.
something natural when Augusta
Mhm.
said, let's talk about educators next week. And so
Oh, okay.
we're
That's
not
awesome.
talking about teachers this week. Instead, we're gonna hear about uh, burnout in other spaces.
Okay.
Burnouts in
Okay. In
other
other
spaces.
spaces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess for me, if we want to talk about burnout in other spaces, before I do that, let me say hi, Snow. Hi to the
Snow!
world.
Oh my gosh, cutie
Isn't
pie.
she cute?
The cutest. Oh,
Okay, bye.
MG.
Say bye, Snow. Okay, we're about to go now. Okay. Mwah.
He
All right.
can he can stay in the frame. He's like, my little support animal.
Yes, that is my little support animal. She's 3 pounds.
Wow.
And she keeps me company. She helps me with burnout at times, but I'll get to that. But to talk about burnout and back to what you were saying, as far as in other spaces, I used to be a guidance counselor for a very long time. I would say 10 to 11 years, right? And I work at a school that was very demanding, right? And we had um, a lot going on at that school all the time. I won't say names, right? However, there was always something for me to do, always attending to the kids. We had to do so much, whether it is scheduling, whether it is meetings, it was very demanding all the time. It was nonstop all the time. And I probably was burned out at the time and I didn't even know it, right? Because when you are in that state, it's just that adrenaline kick in and then you just
Yes.
keep on going. You keep on going. You keep on going. And to the point where you get to that place of, okay, I think I'm just really extremely exhausted. Okay. Feeling drained. When you feel exhausted, you feel drained, you feel depleted, and you're just unable to cope. You're unable to do the things that you
Mm.
want to do. You just don't have the motivation that you used to have anymore. And I felt that way when I was coming to the end of my career as a guidance counselor. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is just too much.
It's
Um,
interesting that you said that because
yeah.
that's a feeling I had as a teacher. I couldn't
Mm.
do it anymore. It was just too much. And it makes me think, is that like a precursor to this burnout? Let me let you keep going.
Well, if you get to the place of feeling distance, like you feel mentally fatigued, mentally distanced from everything, and you just don't want to do anything
Mhm.
more when it comes, if you think about jobs, like, oh, I don't want to do this again, or I don't want to go back to work, or if you think about, the things that you have to do if when you come from work, the only thing you could think about
Yeah.
is work. And the
Oh,
things that you have to do the next day, right? And then your brain never really rests. as you were saying before. It never just rests. So at to that state, we get to the place of, like you said, burnout. So the core signs, I would say, of burnout is exhaustion,
Mm.
is detachment, and it's also you feeling like, okay, the way I used to work, I no longer work like this. My
Yes,
performance
yes.
has come down. Okay.
Mhm.
So it is a real thing being burnout. But if you are burnout, then guess what? Who are you able to serve at this point? Right? Because
Yeah,
you don't have nothing left to
yeah,
give. So that's when you have to identify, okay, I am burnout. And sometimes, people don't want to say they're burnout neither.
right.
You know what I mean?
Like we don't want to name it. We don't want to make
They
that a
don't want to name it.
label.
I'm
Yeah,
just tired, maybe if I just sleep, that would, fix it. But then again, you sleep, but yet you're not getting good sleep because your mind is ruminating, constantly
mm.
ruminating.
How
And
about
you're
something
not
like
happy.
this, like um feeling burnt out, like you're talking about at work, but when you're home, you have another kind of work to do. You know what I'm thinking? Does that compound the issue of burnout, or is that kind of like a conduit where you could release some of the strain because now it's a different kind of work?
Well, I would say it's like I would say both, right? Some people might find home to be a place of peace, right? If it
Yeah,
is peaceful. Some
yeah.
people might come home and it is not peaceful for them to go home. So then therefore, if they felt burnout at work, they come home and then that is a compound situation that's happening here, when you come home, if
Yeah.
your home is not peaceful.
Well, I
So
remember,
then go
yeah,
ahead.
I remember being in the space of feeling depleted. So I'm not going to say
Uh-huh.
burnout, but depleted at work.
Uh-huh.
But then coming home to a kind of structured work, children that need to be fed, homework that I need to look at, bath time, story time, and then on
Mm-hmm.
Saturdays to go to their soccer games and their basketball games.
Mm-hmm.
So I was constantly in a space of working, whether it's working on my job or working at home. But for some reason, the
Mm-hmm.
working at home didn't feel like burnout or depletion at all. It was just work.
It was just work.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't feel like it's burnout at home, but that does not mean you are not burned out.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Yes.
So it's like almost like a little cover up,
Oh.
right? So you at home and you get to be distracted with other things, right? So then you're not thinking about everything else that puts you in a state of extreme stress, right? So
Mm.
you're being distracted by something else. So then we think, okay, well, yeah, maybe I don't feel burnout at home. Yeah, we got that, but you still burned out, right? So if you think about a candle, when it's burned out, it's burned out,
Mm.
right? Whatever environment you put the candle in, if it's
Yeah.
burned out, it's still burned out, right?
Yeah.
So burnout is the state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion that is called caused by prolonged stress. Okay. That's
Physical,
what it is. It is the
mental.
physical, it's the emotional and mental exhaustion that is caused by prolonged
Mm.
stress.
Okay.
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 So it could be from work,
Okay.
it could be from other situations at home. Maybe if it's not from home, it could be something else. It could be even social activities. It could be having friends. You could feel burned out with your friends because they pour or they tell you so much. They tell you so much. It's like, oh my gosh, this person always, talking to me about this one thing, or you're the listener and they're the talker. You could feel burnout from, talking to your friends. Burnout doesn't have to necessarily mean, okay, we are burnout from work per
Oh,
se.
okay.
Burnout could be in a lot of different situations. You could be burnout in your relationship, in your marriage. Hello.
Mhm.
Right?
Well,
So
that's
it
a
does.
good definition that helps me to determine
Mhm.
if I'm burnt out or not. And for
Mm.
those listening to think of prolonged stress. So if you're looking at it, burnout in relationships, uh, marital relationships or your friend circle,
Hmm.
I remember prolonged stress in a middle school. I was teaching middle school and I had just left an elementary school where I was a first grade teacher for 6 years. And
Wow.
I moved from first grade to sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. So I
Mm,
taught different parts of the sixth grade curriculum, seventh and eighth grade curriculum. And I thought, oh my gosh, this doesn't feel good. This is crazy. How does this get done? But it was new. And when things are new, we have the
hmm.
adrenaline that keeps us going, learning new things, figuring it out, making steps to be effective. But over time, I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you it was stressful. So
Absolutely.
being in that
Absolutely.
space of that prolonged stress, it's emotional because you want to do well. It's mental
Hmm.
because you have to create these curriculums and activities. And
Hmm.
it's physical because you're working long hours. I remember my
Absolutely.
husband and I taught at the same school. So he taught math, eighth grade, and I was teaching English. And I kid you not, even at 7 p.m., I was still at work. And I thought to myself, this is
Wow.
crazy. Like, no, we're
Wow.
not doing this. How is this happening? How is this happening? It's
Wow.
so good that we had great childcare in the neighborhood. So it was a matter of going to that person's development and then picking up our children and taking them home. They'd feed them in the morning, feed them at night, and then we'd get home. But that was not sustainable.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And as for me, going back to, and I'm going to get back to what you were saying, when I left being a guidance counselor, I went to become a licensed mental health therapist. Hence, I could help more people to deal with exactly just that, the prolonged stress and the burnout. Because I just saw a lot and I wanted to be able to help people in a different arena, different space, right? Especially mentally. Because if our mind is not okay, everything else is not okay. We
Yeah.
could be physically okay, but if your mind is not okay, physically, you're
Thank you.
right. So your mind
Thank
has to
you.
be right before anything.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you for doing this hard work because you moved from the space of children to doing it with children and adults
yes.
outside of education. So, thank you for really positioning yourself to be of service in this area. So, what would be one suggestion, one thing you could suggest for someone who is feeling one of these symptoms of burnout? How could they address it? Like one thing.
I would say they have to find, or I would think about what, when they were not burned out, what did
Mhm.
that look like for them before? What was happening then, right? And try to see if they could, I wouldn't say recreate,
Mm.
but go back to, sometimes it's just going back to the basic, right?
Wow.
So for
Yeah.
example, if you didn't take on 10 projects, right, at work, and you only had one project, well, can you go back to that? Because ultimately, when you become burned out, then you stretch yourself so thin that you're not useful for other people. So you got to always pour into yourself so that you could continue to be useful to others. So a lot of time, people who get burned out a lot, they're in fields that they're always pouring into others. They're giving, 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 giving. And hence, I'm a mental health therapist, right? And a coach. So then, therefore, I'm always pouring into people all day, every day. I'm pouring into individuals. So then I have to be mindful about not being burned out myself. So then I could be able to help others, right? To continue to help them. So, like I said, going back to basics, like you said, one of the things you could go back and say, okay, what did my life look like before I
Mm.
felt burned
Wow.
out, right? And
Yeah.
see if you could implement some of those things.
Yeah.
Another thing that you could do is find out when can you find space to truly rest, and what is rest for you? What does that truly look like? Right? Because people think when they say rest, they just thinking, oh, okay, I'm just going to go take a rest. I'm going to go sleep. I'm going to just relax and absolutely do nothing. But resting is actually recharging. I
Hmm.
think about um, like the EV cars, right? I
Okay.
think about maybe, okay, let's just say Tesla. You have to take it to a station and it has to be at a state of rest and then you got to recharge it. Okay. So resting
Yeah.
is not just, okay, doing nothing. Resting is also recharging.
That's good.
Okay.
I hadn't thought about it
So
that way.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you
So
also
we,
have to
we can
recharge.
rest as in stop working, stop doing something like my body can be at rest, but I'm not recharging.
You're not recharging.
Wow.
Right, right, right.
That's
Because
good.
then
That's good.
physically you need to recharge. That's
Mm,
like, sleeping, right? Emotionally, remember what burnout was, right? It's affecting all those areas. So emotionally, you have to recharge, right? So
mhm.
emotionally might mean, I don't know, going to therapy if you need to. Emotionally might mean talking to someone that is that's a listener, right? Maybe emotionally might be doing something where you feel excited doing,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Maybe emotionally might be just going out and taking a walk, a
Yeah.
nature walk,
Yeah. You
right?
you you are all those things. You like taking walks and you
Absolutely.
are a great listener. You're a great
Thank
listener for
you.
me. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
I suspect at those times when I'm resting, I'm also being recharged because I'm
Yeah,
talking to a friend who's a great listener.
exactly.
Oh my
Exactly.
gosh. So let me
Exactly.
ask you this one thing, and I'm also going to put it in the show notes because you talked about talking with others who's a great listener, and you also talked about therapy.
Mhm.
So a little maybe information about therapy where you can be reached, and I'm also going to put it in the notes at the end.
Oh, okay. Well, if anyone is looking for therapy, they could go to restcounselingandconsulting.com and all the information is there. They could just reach me from there. And if they need to reach me, they could call the office 407-476-7435. I have been a psychotherapist for approximately 18 years. I've had my private practice here in Florida for about 9 years. I work with all different walks of life, and I am now transitioning from the therapy aspect to the coaching because I think I could provide
Mm.
more there. So I'm like kind of combining both together so that way people are able to have an experience that is transformational and not just a band-aid.
Oh,
So
thank
yes.
you. Thank you. And on that note, I want to let you know that next week I'm meeting with Augusta and I wanted to know, think about it, make space on your calendar if you can, and you could join us in that continued conversation on
Okay.
burnout as we support other people who might be experiencing burnout or they're approaching burnout and they need to stave it off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to do that.
All right.
Okay,
So
Tiff.
have have a wonderful day, Guilaine, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Whether you're watching in the morning, at night, on your lunch break, subscribe, click the like button, and definitely share it with someone that you know needs this support.
Thank you for having me.